You're listening to the micro version of the Savage Lovecast. www.savagelovecast.com.
If you're stuck in a relationship quandary, or if you're looking for sexual harmony, well, there's nothing you can't ask on the Savage Lovecast.
So a couple weeks ago when Grab Him by the Pussy broke, when that old recording of Donald Trump bragging to Billy Beane on the Access Hollywood bus about how he regularly assaulted women, when that broke, and there were calls for Donald Trump to maybe drop out of the race, and there was an emergency meeting of the Republican National Committee about maybe Donald Trump dropping out of the race. What do we do if he drops out of the race? And I said, and Hillary Clinton said on SNL, he shouldn't drop out of the race, that we've come this far with Donald Trump, and so much damage has been done to our nation by Donald Trump that he really should stay in to the bitter, bitter end, because now he's damaging the Republican Party that is responsible. And you're seeing that now. You're seeing the Senate clearly moving toward the Democratic side. You're seeing the House in peril, and it's delicious. It's some small compensation for the garbage and the grief of the last year and a half, or what Donald Trump has put us through. The tiny itty bitty silver lining in the shit black cloud that has been this election season. And I'm here at the top of today's show to identify another silver lining, and that is the destruction of Trump Inc., the destruction of the Trump brand. A couple of weeks ago, the New York Times had a front page story about golfers and upper middle class, usually pretty kind of conservative, white people canceling their reservations at Trump resorts because they didn't want to be seen walking in and out of them. They didn't want people to think that they were shitty, xenophobic racists themselves by patronizing Trump establishments. And this was mostly anecdote. Mostly it was just interviews with various random people. Well, now the data is coming in, and the data is delicious. If you're angry at Donald Trump and his 3 creepy, shitty children and their spouses and what they've done to the country, well, the country is going to turn around and do something marvelous to them. It's going to put them all out of work. Hotel bookings for Trump resorts, way down. Actual data. Trump's new shitty hotel in Washington, D.C., they can't give rooms away during the recent IMF, International Monetary Fund, conference when every other luxury hotel in town was booked solid. There were rooms to spare at the new Trump hotel in Washington, D.C. They were discounting them on Hotels.com. More evidence that the Trump brand may be fatally wounded, maybe bleeding there on the ground thanks to the orange racist bigot xenophobe asshole who's been running for president. Trump hotels quietly announced a couple of weeks ago, and really broke in the news really this week, that they are rebranding their new hotels. They will not be opening new Trump hotels because people don't want to fucking go to Trump hotels. They're going to call them Scion, which means the affluent progeny of some rich asshole. This is an effort to, in our minds, end the association of Trump hotel properties with the asshole, orange, racist, xenophobic bigot, and instead for us to associate these new hotels with his creepy, serial killer vibing, awful, rare, exotic animal shooting, racist themselves, icky children. And the contagion has spread to the one Trump that people thought was redeemable, the one Trump that people kind of wanted to like, despite the water she was carrying for the racist, xenophobic bigot at the top of the Republican ticket. That is, of course, Ivanka Trump. Raw Story reports it seems Trump's business spiral isn't isolated to the Donald, and Ivanka Trump might soon need to take her name off her fashion line as well. According to Yahoo Fashion, women are not only boycotting Ivanka's brand, they're also avoiding stores that sell it. So, that's delicious. Elections, as they say, have consequences. So does, as Ivanka is learning now, running interference for your racist, sexist, xenophobic, rapey orange dad. Consequences there, too. This is going to be a small consolation in the next year. We will still have Trumpism to deal with. The white supremacism, the anti-Semitism, the xenophobia, the racism, the Islamophobia, all of these things that Trump has stirred the fuck up over the last year and a half, we will still be dealing with that after November 9th. We will still be dealing with Trumpism. But there is a small consolation. There is a price that will be paid, not just by the nation for Trumpism, but by Trump for Trumpism. Quickly, before we get to the questions and the show and the guests, I want to give a shout out to a really nice couple. And this is a sex story. Hey, we haven't had a sex story at the top of this sex show for a long time because of the fucking national election. This is a sex story. Shout out to the couple I met at a movie theater this weekend who came up to me, older couple, late 40s, early 50s, to thank me and Mistress Matisse and Savannah Sly and the people we've had on the show to talk about sex work, that because they were regular listeners to the podcast, when they learned that their daughter was doing professional domination work to help pay for college, so as not to be too much of a burden to her parents and so as not to go into crushing debt by taking out too many student loans, they didn't have a panic attack. They knew something, they were informed, and they were able to have a reasonable conversation with their daughter about safety, about anonymity, and about what she's doing for money at this moment without having a meltdown, without feeling shame, without shaming their daughter, and without feeling unnecessarily unduly panicked about the kind of sex work that she is doing. So it was nice to meet you. Thank you for the thank you, and I will relay your thanks, lovely couple, to Savannah Sly, Mistress Matisse, and the rest of our guests who've touched on sex work. All right, coming up on today's show, we have the hosts from the podcast One Bad Mother to handle a particularly tricky parenting question with me, and of course, tons of your questions all coming up. No more politics on today's show. Today's episode is brought to you by Blue Apron. Blue Apron delivers all fresh, high-quality ingredients and recipes you need to create delicious home-cooked meals. Get your first 3 meals for free by going to blueapron.com/savage. The Savage Lovecast is sponsored by Headspace, the guided meditation app that will help you focus and reduce stress. Learn more at headspace.com/savage. Today's episode of the Savage Lovecast is brought to you by Wink, the wine club that sends wine directly to your door. Try Wink, get $20 off and complimentary shipping when you go to trywink.com/savage. That's TRYWINC.com/savage.
Hi, Dan. I'm a 32-year-old heterosexual female living in LA. I moved to LA about 6 months ago, but since then I've struggled to find a full-time, well-paying job. Yesterday, I had an interview for a job that I was excited about, but when I met the boss, in other words, the guy I would be reporting to, alarm bells went off in my head. For starters, he seemed to take a particular interest in why I moved here. On several occasions, he asked if it was because of a guy, or whether I was about to be engaged, or where was my ring. That was awkward in itself, but the larger issue was in the way he looked at me. Now, like most women in the workforce, I've had colleagues check me out from time to time. This was a different kind of thing. To be clear, he did not cross a line. He did not do anything wrong, but still, I left with a terrible feeling. I couldn't help but think he was the Donald Trump of finance. In other words, the kind of guy who would, accidentally walk into a room if he knew a female was changing. Under normal circumstances, I would walk away. But the truth of the matter is, I'm nearly exhausted my savings. I have rent to pay. And don't even get me started on student debt. Dan, if he offers me the job, should I take it, despite the alarm bells going off in my head? And how does one cope with a boss that gives them the creeps?
You need the job. My advice would be to take the job, document everything, keep contemporaneous records, share whatever misgivings you have about the interview with friends now, share whatever misgivings you have about the way you're treated at work with colleagues and coworkers that you come to trust. And if he creates a hostile work environment, if he's a creep, if he creeps on you, he walks into a room where he knows you happen to be changing, hopefully you won't have cause to change at work in finance, and then you quit, and then you sue him, and then you retire some of that student debt.
Hey, so I had a question about breakups. I guess the situation always kind of dictates how you're going to feel about it. You always feel a little bit shitty. When you break up with somebody, it's a lot easier than when they break up with you. My issue has been after we've broken up, I've had these kind of consistent feelings that my ex is just a better person than I am, which I should be happy about, right? I should be happy that she's that way. But it feels like there's this kind of indomitable wall that I can't get behind in my life. Like I'll never be able to be more interesting or wholesome than her now that we're broken up. And I guess how do you deal with that, and how do you regain some of your own confidence after somebody's broken up with you?
So your ex is more interesting, you say, and more wholesome than you. Interesting and wholesome, usually things that don't come in a bundle, usually things that don't come in a package. Usually someone is interesting or wholesome. Rarely do they achieve interesting and wholesome. So your ex must be quite a person. You yourself must be quite a person as well. I know that when you get dumped, there's always this temptation to tear yourself down because of the rejection. But the trick you have to play in your mind is when you get dumped, you kind of have to start building yourself up. And that's an intentional choice. Like, get out of the house, go places, do things. If you feel not as interesting as her, ask yourself, what are you interested in? Go out and do more of that. Get up to speed on whatever your interests are. Become an expert in the field of your interests, and you will be, through that effort, a more interesting person. You will certainly be a more interesting person if you get out there and throw yourself into your interests, whatever they are, than if you just sit around your apartment bemoaning the fact that you are not as interesting, you think, as your ex-girlfriend is in your head. And it also helps get over rejection. If you regard rejection, if you learn to regard rejection as painful as it is, as fake it till you make it a process as it is, if you learn to regard rejection as your friend. Because what it means when somebody breaks up with you is you are no longer wasting your time on someone who isn't interested in you. You are continuing to make an emotional investment in that relationship with that person, and they want it out. So the sooner they come to you and end it and get out, the less wasted investment you're going to make in that person. And the sooner you will be on to someone who welcomes that emotional investment, who does want to be with you. So getting rejected hurts, but getting to rejection in a relationship that isn't going to work out for the long run, if the long run is what you want, hurts, but also in a way helps because it moves you on to the person coming, hopefully, in your future, coming, hopefully, in your presence, on your face, whatever, that person you will be ready and available for because you are no longer in a relationship with someone who doesn't want you. You're no longer investing your time and energy, sexual and emotional and otherwise, in her. So get out there, be interesting. Good luck. Most problems start in the mind. Fear, anger, stress, anxiety, sleeplessness, they begin in your head, but they can wreck your life. Meditation can help. And Headspace is meditation made simple. There's a mountain of science out there showing the positive effects of meditation and mindfulness. And the Headspace app provides guided meditations you can use whenever you want, wherever you want, on your phone, computer, or tablet. They have sessions focused on everything from dealing with stress and anxiety to eating healthier, sleeping better, and even being more creative. It's 1% of your day that can change the other 99. So download the Headspace app and train your mind for a happier, healthier life. Learn more at headspace.com/savage. That's headspace.com/savage.
Hi, Dan. I'm calling about your opening to episode 520. You were sex-shamed Donald Trump. I agree. The video isn't good. He is not a good person. But it's just another way of sex-shaming a person. And it's not cool. I thought you would be more supportive, and I think you should be more supportive.
Let's just go to the tape, shall we?
Yeah, that's it, with the gold. I gotta use some Tic Tacs just in case I start kissing her. You know, I'm automatically attracted to beautiful. I just start kissing them. It's like a magnet. You just kiss. I don't even wait. And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything.
Whatever you want.
Grab them by the pussy. Do anything.
All right. We're not sex shaming Donald Trump here because he's a straight guy who appreciates female beauty and can speak to that in a respectful way. And you know what? I'm pro objectification. You guys have all heard me talk about objectification is something that at times we welcome. At times we want to be treated like objects. We are physical beings who move through the world. There's a part of our existence on this planet that is as an object. And there are times when we want to be assessed as an object. We want to be appreciated as an object by a partner, and we invite that. But Donald Trump is not this woman's partner. And it's not just, oh, she's so hot, that Donald Trump and Billy Bush are talking with each other about. That's really not the problem. Not desire, not his sexual activity. It's his rapey activity that is a problem here. I just start kissing them. I don't even wait. When you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything grab them by the pussy, you can do anything without waiting, without asking. That's not sex. So we're not sex shaming Donald Trump when we pile on him about these comments. We are sexual assault shaming Donald Trump, which is appropriate and called for because this shit is wrong. Go look up Kelly Oxford on Twitter. She tweeted right after the tape broke, "Women, tweet me your first assaults. They aren't just stats. I'll go first. Old man on city bus grabs my quote unquote pussy and smiles at me. I'm 12. You get in line and you go read several 100,000 of the tweets sent out in response to Kelly Oxford. More than 1 million now. Just go read several 100,000. I think that might help you. Several 100,000 accounts of women being assaulted, grabbed, mauled by shitbags like Donald Trump. That is not about sex shaming, saying that's a shitty behavior. That's, again, sexual assault shaming, sexual predator shaming, rapist shaming. And people who assault people, prey on them, rape them, they should be shamed. They have done something shameful. They should be ashamed of themselves. And if you go read the tweets that Kelly Oxford got in response to her call, and you aren't heartbroken, and you don't understand what's wrong with the question you called in with, then you are perhaps past helping. And if you're past helping on this issue, you are a part of the problem. You're a man, I'm a man. We move through the world with this expectation that we are physically relatively safe. We are safe from this kind of sexual predation that Donald Trump bragged about engaging in this tape. Women don't move through the world with that expectation of safety, which is why these comments were so much more offensive and scalding and upsetting to women. And maybe if when you were 12 years old and you were on a bus, somebody grabbed your genitals, and then that wasn't the last time that happened, just the first time that happened, maybe you would understand what's wrong with Donald Trump's remarks. Maybe if you went and talked to some of your female relatives, maybe if you went and spoke to your female romantic partner, if indeed you have one. Not sure you deserve one if you have one, but if you have one, you might want to ask her about whether it's sex shaming Donald Trump to point out that his comments are, and his actions, as we now know, are not okay, are completely fucked up, have nothing to do with the I-supported expression of desire, nothing to do with that, nothing to do with a healthy imagination, everything to do with unhealthy, sexist predation. And he should be ashamed of himself. And you, sir, if you're coming to his defense, you should be ashamed of yourself too. When autumn rolls around, I always find myself drinking more wine, or I should say more wine in addition to all the rosé wine I had been drinking in the summer. Autumn, real wines, and that means stocking up. Club W has always made it easy to get wine personalized to your palate and delivered right to your door. But update! Club W is now called Winc, spelled W-I-N-C. A new name and an improved look, but it's still the same wine company introducing you to new wines that you will love. Winc works directly with winemakers and growers from all over the world to create delicious wine and deliver it right to your door. Winc's 100% satisfaction guarantee means that if you don't like a bottle they sent you, they will replace it with a bottle you will love, no questions asked. Winc is a personalized wine membership club that recommends wines specifically based on the results of their palate profile quiz. You can also rate all of the wine you receive from Winc so they learn about you with every order and constantly personalize the wine they send you. Sign up for Winc right now and gain immediate insider access to the best fine wine from all over the world. Winc is offering my listeners $20 off right now when you go to trywinc.com/savage. They'll even cover the shipping. You will get fine wine personalized to your palate, delivered right to your door. Winc is offering my listeners $20 off right now when you go to trywinc.com/savage. They'll even cover the shipping. You get fine wine personalized to your palate, delivered right to your door. Try Winc, get $20 off, plus complimentary shipping right now when you go to trywinc.com/savage. That's trywinc.com/savage.
Hi, Dan. I am a late 20s social worker living and working in Detroit. And I have a professional personal question for you. Almost all of my clients are people of color. A lot of them are women. I work with two two men, white men in their 50s, who are Trump supporters. And it is really upsetting and seems contradictory that they would be Trump supporters when they've dedicated their lives to this kind of work. I've tried to avoid the conversations. I've tried to engage in like calm, rational conversations, discussing the obvious terrifying elements of Trump and the merits of Hillary Clinton. And I feel like they're gaslighting me, and it's really, really upsetting. So I don't know if you can offer any suggestions on how to keep my sanity and keep my job under these circumstances, because I mean, I'm not the only woman who feels like this man is triggering and terrifying, and any insight that you can offer would be really, really helpful.
I'm sure you've seen those terrifying hypothetical maps floating around online. This is what the Electoral College breakdown would look like. Red state, blue state breakdown would look like if only men could vote. Donald Trump would win the election by a landslide. If only white people could vote. This is how the electoral map would look, and Donald Trump wins the election by a landslide. If only people over 50 could vote. Here's what the map would look like. Donald Trump wins by a landslide. Well, thank God that we have women and people of color and young people here to save old white men from their apparent desire to destroy the fucking country. Thank God women vote, people of color vote, young people vote, queer people vote. Remember, never forget 2012, Romney Obama split the straight vote, 49%, 49%, right down the middle, a tie. Obama took 76% of the queer vote and won the election, if you slice the pie up by sexual orientation, thanks to queer voters. So queer people, you vote, we vote too, and we save the country too. So, caller, these old white guys at work, not really learning anything when they blow their mouths off about Trump that you shouldn't already know. Old white guys, the majority of them. Look around your office. Hopefully there's some other old white guys there who are not voting for Trump. I'm white. I'm over 50. I'm a guy, queer, but not voting for Trump. Maybe that can help you keep these two or this small handful of old white guys at your place of employment in some sort of perspective. Maybe it'll help you shrug off their comments, not feel triggered by their support for Trump, who you find triggering, because they're gonna lose. Go to 538.com, play the percentage game, cross yourself 3 or 4 times, even if you are not Catholic. It works. It's magic. No plane I'm on it ever crashes because I always remember to cross myself. And just tell yourself, fucker's going to lose the election. We're still going to have to deal with Trumpism after the election. The poisons he has unleashed are going to continue to sicken us before we get better. But you don't have to feel like you got to rush in and talk these guys out of it. You don't have to feel like you have to engage with them at all. Write them off. Place them in the tiny basket of deplorables in your mind and refuse to be baited. Refuse to discuss it. Refuse to be triggered. Borrow a page from my life. My father, independent though he is, tends to vote for the Republican candidate for whatever, whenever he can. So every 4 years, right around this time, we just kind of stop talking about politics because it's too explosive. And you can say to them when they want to talk Trump, you can look at them and say, I don't want to talk politics. I want to talk about work. Let's talk about our clients or Westworld or something else, not this. As I've mentioned on the show before, Terry and I have been using Blue Apron to have meal ingredients shipped to our house for a while now. For less than $10 per meal, Blue Apron delivers seasonal recipes along with pre-proportioned ingredients, everything you need to make delicious home-cooked meals. They send us tasty, healthy meals every week, not gratis. We are paying customers, and we never have to repeat the same meals within a year, so the variety is amazing. We even save the recipe cards, and sometimes we recreate the dishes on our own later by going to the grocery store and gathering up what we need. That's how good these recipes are. And anyone can prepare them. When Terry was out of town, Terry's the cook in the family. Terry cooks the food. I do the dishes. But when Terry was out of town, there were Blue Apron meals in the fridge, and I prepared them myself, which is a miracle. Toast and boiling water for hot dogs were the extents of my culinary skill set until Blue Apron came along and I started making some of those meals myself. You customize your recipes each week based on your preferences. You choose delivery options to fit your needs and schedules. There's no weekly commitment, so you only get deliveries when you want them. And this week, they're offering dishes like spiced beef skewers with roasted squash and garlic rice or Sicilian-style rigatoni pasta. And recipes are between 500 and 700 calories per portion, so it's delicious and good for you. And right now, you can get your first 3 meals for free at blueapron.com/savage. That's blueapron.com/savage. Blue Apron, a better way to cook.
Hi, Dan. I'm a 27-year-old straight female living in California. I love your show and your advice, and I'm calling with a question about dealing with families that I hope you can help me with. I recently married my husband, and things are great between us. I love him so much. We've been together for 6 years, and I'm really proud of the relationship we've built together that's really based on love, trust, and respect. My issue is not with my husband at all. It's with his family. So, Dan, one of the reasons why I love your show is that you are a very logical, thoughtful person. You always take the time to analyze different scenarios and think about possible outcomes. My husband and I are the same way. We're very rational, logical people and like to calmly think things through and make careful decisions together. My husband's sister, on the other hand, is the complete opposite. She's really erratic and illogical with her thinking and often lashes out when she doesn't get her way. What's worse, she seems to have little capacity to think empathetically about others. As an example, even though my husband texts her every few days, calls her regularly, and even makes trips to visit her when he can, every few months she sends a string of awful text messages to him, accusing him of being a negligent and absent brother. She seems to have an insatiable need for attention, and he can never do enough to make her happy. This puts my husband in an endless cycle of feeling like he's a bad brother when, in my personal opinion, his sister needs to be more understanding that he is busy and can't be in touch 24/7. So, Dan, here's my question for you. When you are a logical person, how do you deal with somebody who doesn't think logically or reasonably? I frankly think she's emotionally abusive, and if she were a friend, I'd advise my husband to completely cut her out of his life. But, of course, she isn't, and at the end of the day, my husband wants to be a good brother and a good family member. So, Dan, any advice on how to manage or cope with the crazy? Could really use your help here.
You don't mention whether or not your husband's actions in response to his sister's manipulations are making you miserable, if this is taking time away from you, if this is having a negative impact on your relationship with your husband, or if this is just something that you see him going through and you think someone's treating your husband badly and it annoys you and you empathize. And if you were in his shoes, you would do X, Y, and Z to make it stop. If it's the former, if this is making you miserable, his sister's bullshit games, then you have to go to your husband and say, somebody's going to be miserable in this equation, your wife or your sister. And if you have to choose, if you're the husband and you have to choose between an irrational, miserable, upset, griping sister and an unhappy, miserable wife, you are supposed to choose unhappy sister over unhappy wife. And you're going to have to really wall off your sister a little bit and protect yourself and, by extension, our marriage from her bullshit and her machinations and her drama. But on the other hand, it's the latter. You're just watching what he goes through and you feel bad for him. And you know, because you're a rational, logical person, that there is no bottom to his sister's misery or her needs, because citing that misery and pointing to those needs is how she controls your brother and gets him to dance attendance upon her. And if he's a logical person, he should be able to see that, particularly if you point that out to him enough times, that there's no satisfying her in this, because her misery is her lever. She's going to keep pushing that lever so long as it works. So really what I think you should both do is a united front here, where your husband doesn't quite cut her off, but really pulls way back. And if she says, you have to come running right now, and he says no, and she has a heart attack and throws a fit, he's going to have to power through those feelings of being a bad brother and her attempts to manipulate and guilt trip him about it. She's throwing tantrums. Your husband needs to understand this, particularly if you ever are going to have kids together. Tantrums don't stop so long as they work. And right now, his sister, her tantrums, they work on him. And so they're going to keep coming. and coming and coming and coming and coming until they stop working, which is going to require some gonadal fortitude on both your parts to let her howl and scream and weather the accusations that he's a terrible brother and you awful sister-in-law have had this awful impact on my brother and a bad influence on my brother. Just let her howl. Let her scream herself hoarse. And when it stops working, when your brother doesn't come running anymore, maybe she can have an adult relationship with him. Or maybe she won't have any sort of relationship with him. Maybe she will do your brother the favor of cutting him out of her life.
Hey, Dan, 26-year-old straightish female from the Midwest here, and I have a question about how to encourage a partner to seek help. I've been with my boyfriend for 2 years. We lived together for most of that time. Up until recently, we've enjoyed a great and varied sex life. We've always had a little bit of a mismatch in terms of libido, with me having a slightly higher drive, but we had found a balance that was working really well for us. The last few months have been really tough at my boyfriend's job, working 12-plus hour days, 7 days a week, and constantly on call. He also suffers from some PSD from emotional and physical abuse as a child. Most of the time, his PTSD is under control, but as with most mental illnesses, stress can amplify its effect. As he has been so stressed with work, he has completely shut himself off. We have been intimate only about once a month for the last 4 months. If I try to initiate any physical intimacy, including just cuddling on the couch, he pulls away. After months of frustration, I used my words and told him what I was seeing and how it was making me feel. I told him I understood that the stress was really wearing on him, but that I really missed and craved that physical connection. I asked him if there was anything I could do to help. His answer was for me to quit trying. He told me that he loves me and is attracted to me, but has deep-seated intimacy issues and is only interested in touching right now if he initiates it. Obviously, I'm hurt and it seems super unfair, but I understand mental illness is a fickle bitch. I brought up the idea of him going to therapy and or us going together. He told me he was not interested and that he doesn't think therapy helps, probably because he's had shitty therapists before. I've offered to research and contact therapists, but nothing. I'm hoping that this is just a hard stage and that this too shall pass, but I know that's not a guarantee. I would appreciate any advice you could give me on encouraging him to work through this with me. I love him and I really don't want him to go, but I hate the idea of having little say in my own sex life.
You're 26 years old. You've been in this relationship for 24 months. And for 4 of those months, or 1/6 of the length of this relationship, your boyfriend, who has issues, mental health issues, PTSD, is still dealing with the impact of whatever abuse it was that he suffered as a child. And that's awful. And I ache for him. Hasn't been able to meet your needs. And not only that, has had to really ask you not to touch him and to impose upon you an imbalance around intimacy and affection and the expression of both those things, where he can initiate, he can reach out and touch you when he has a need for physical intimacy or physical contact, but you are not allowed to do those things to him. And that is, as you say, unfair to you. And the question then becomes, when you're in a relationship like this, how much unfairness are you obligated, emotionally obligated, ethically obligated to swallow or tolerate or endure out of consideration for the other person's damage? That's a question that I think you have to answer for yourself. But if I were in your shoes, I would be tempted to go to my boyfriend in the most loving and supportive way I possibly could, with resources lined up for him just in case, and say to him, look, right now, my presence in your life is adding to your stress levels, which are making you unhappy and seem to be triggering your PTSD and shutting you off emotionally and sexually and intimately. Just we can't even cuddle. So I think that for right now, we should take a break. We should stop dating. That doesn't mean we can't circle back. It doesn't mean that when you're in a better place with less stress in your life and you may be able to handle the stress that does come with having a romantic partner, we could pick up where we left off. But for right now, this circumstance where I can't touch you and my presence and my needs add to your stress levels that I know that are already making you miserable, that's untenable. That's not a healthy place for either of us to be. We don't have to throw pots and pans at each other. We don't have to hate each other. We don't have to be angry. Let's just take a break and make sure that we're both putting the blame where it belongs, which is on whoever abused you And the mental illness and the PTSD, neither of us are necessarily at fault here. But just because neither of us are at fault right now in this relationship doesn't mean this relationship is in either of our best interests at this moment.
Hi, Dan. I'm a 25-year-old gay man, and my question is about how to approach a situation where your significant other's parents seem to want nothing to do with you. A bit of background, my boyfriend and I have been dating for over a year and a half, the longest relationship for either of us. I've introduced him to most of my family, including some extended family, and they absolutely love him, which is awesome. On the other hand, my boyfriend has a much different relationship with his family, particularly his parents. He's been out for most of his adult life now, but they are very religious and don't seem to want to acknowledge his personal life at all. Apparently, they've met some past boyfriends in passing, but officially bringing someone home hasn't happened yet for him, which brings me to my situation. I was recently made aware that I am not welcome to join him and his family for Thanksgiving this year. I am not exactly sure how that point was made to my boyfriend. Part of me suspects he didn't actually ask them and just made the decision for himself. But either way, I understand that it's a difficult situation for him to be in since he is taking advantage of his parents' hospitality when he's back home. I also want to respect his decisions if he wants to take this part of our relationship slow, but at what point is it fair for me to say that eventually he just needs to grow a pair? Maybe I am taking this too personally, so be completely honest, Dan. I come from families where guests have always been welcome to our gatherings, so I do feel a bit judged and hurt. Moving forward, I also don't want to end up in a relationship where I can't spend major holidays with my boyfriend because his parents would rather pretend that I don't exist and he'd rather not rock the boat. Even if it's just a couple of weeks out of the year, I think it's reasonable to want to share those memories together as a couple, and they can ignore me for the rest of the year, to be completely honest. Any advice or brutal honesty would be appreciated.
No ultimatums at this stage, 1.5 years into the relationship, but you need to put him on notice. Tell your boyfriend that you understand why he's going home for Thanksgiving. You have a large, loving family yourself. You're sad that you won't be together at Thanksgiving, but you understand where he's at this moment in his relationship with his parents. And where he's at, referencing earlier call, parents are still having the tantrum about his sexuality, and the tantrums are continuing because they work on your boyfriend, because he allows himself to be manipulated by his parents' tantrums. They will never stop. You don't have to go into that with him. What you do need to say to him is, I will put up with this for now, but if we end up going the long haul, if there's a serious future together, the two of us, I'm not going to be with someone who abandons me on holidays to run off and spend time with his hateful, homophobic family that reject this part of him. If we are going to, down the road, make a serious commitment to each other, that means we're casting our lots in together. That means we are a unit. We are a couple. I put you first. You put me first. We will be, if we reach that point, we will be each other's immediate next of kin, spouses. And so that means I will be more important to you and in your life and to you for your future than your parents are, who are your past. And you don't abuse your future to appease these monsters who are in your past. And like I always say to kids with shitty evangelical fundy parents, you're only, and you should say this to your boyfriend, your only leverage over your parents when you are an adult child, independent and on your own, your only leverage is your presence. That's it. If they can't treat you with respect, if they can't treat the people that you love with respect, then you don't make yourself present. You don't show up. You have to play that card. Love me, love my, if this is in your future, my husband. Respect me, respect my husband. Welcome me, welcome my husband, or I am not coming home. Is what your boyfriend has to be prepared to say to his parents. And he will never get to a new and better place with his parents if he does not say that to them. There's no guarantee he'll get to a better place with his parents if he does say that to him, but he will never, guaranteed, he will never get to a better place with his parents if he doesn't say it to them. And some compensation, he has you. He has your extended family. He won't be homeless for the holidays if he rejects his parents' conditional offers of hospitality. Hospitality offered him around the holidays on the condition that he not be himself, that he not love who he loves, on the condition that they don't have to treat with respect. the person, if you indeed become that person in time, I don't think you are that person at 1.5 years, not able to treat the person he loves most and values most with the respect that that person deserves by dint of being loved by their son. So, yeah, grow a pair of gonads of some sort gradually. Right now, put him on notice that those gonads are growing. They're not to the line in the sand. I don't know if you draw a line in the sand with your nuts, but I guess if you were super flexible, you could. They're not to the gonads drawing a line in the sand stage yet. Not to ultimatum point yet. Just put it in his head that right now you're going to be the bigger person. You're going to be the more loving person than his parents are capable of being. You're not going to put him in a position where he has to right now choose between his parents and you. But he's going to put himself in that position down the road. He's going to, if he commits to you, he will have put himself in the position where he has to choose between you and his parents. And the choice should be obvious.
Hi, Dan. I am a 34-year-old straight cis female living in the Midwest. I am in a 9-year monogamous relationship with my partner. For the last, I would say, year or so, the sex has really declined, but we absolutely love each other, and when the sex is great, it's great. When it's bad, it's really bad. I was recently invited to a play party with a girlfriend of mine. I grew up going to play parties, and I say grow up, I mean when I was 19, 20 years old, I was going to play parties, and my experience with those is they were strictly kink parties, no sex allowed at the parties themselves. I really enjoyed going to them, but I had a bad experience that really put me off of them for a long time. I've been interested in going to play parties again. My partner is very vanilla, but it's definitely on the table and it's something that we're discussing. This particular party that my friend invited me to was an all-female party, so it's definitely something that I feel like my partner would have been comfortable going to alone. However, I later found out as me and the girls were getting to know one another, we were all in a group chat. We were sending sexy messages to one another, sexy pictures, that sort of thing, all pretty innocent. But I later found out that it wasn't exactly a play party, a kink party, so much as it was an orgy that I was invited to. It hasn't happened yet. It's happening next week, and I'm really on the fence. My partner and I are absolutely monogamous. He would be absolutely crushed and heartbroken if I slept with anyone else. Not that I think that I would. I absolutely think that women are beautiful and sexy and gorgeous. I love going to strip clubs. I love being around naked women. They're beautiful. But the Garfunkel and Oates song about the college try definitely applies to me. Women are sexy, women are beautiful, but please don't put your vagina in my face. It's just not something that makes me comfortable, and I'm aware of that. That being said, if I were to attend this party, I really don't know if I would get swept up in the moment. So what do you think? Do I go to this party? Do we talk about it? Is it something that I should even entertain the idea of going? My thought is if I go and maybe have a little fun and bring that sexual energy back and pound it into my boyfriend, things that I've heard you say before. I don't know. What do you think, Dan?
You omitted one salient detail, whether or not your boyfriend knows about this play party, now orgy, that you've been invited to, and whether he's comfortable with you going to this all-women play party, now orgy. That seems highly relevant. If you were going to sneak off to this play party to absorb the erotic vibes with no intention of doing anything sexual with anyone else without your boyfriend being there or knowing about it, and you were really, really sure that you could just soak up the sexual energy to get yourself jazzed and then run home and plow that into him, you could maybe justify that as, you know, something that he would probably rather not know, something that he would not let you do if you asked for permission. And if you got caught, maybe better to ask for forgiveness. But if you never found out about it, he would benefit from it because you would come home so jazzed and you would just plow that erotic energy again into him and fuck the shit out of him. And he would never know that what inspired you to such heights of horniness that night was everything you witnessed earlier while you told him you were at the movies or girls' night out to dinner or wherever you told him you were going, if indeed he doesn't know where you're going. But I don't think that you can safely rationalize showing up at this party, knowing now that it is an orgy. If he slept with someone else, just quoting you right back at you, if I slept with someone else, he would be crushed. And then you say, I don't think I would mess around. but you posit the possibility of being swept up in the moment. So you actually do think you might mess around. And the thing you cite is the reason you may not actually follow through and mess around is having a pussy in your face. But what about having somebody's face in your pussy? What about having somebody's fingers in your pussy? There's messing around at an all-lady orgy that doesn't involve cunnilingus, which for some mild bi women is the bar they can't clear. And it was that experience that inspired Garfunkel and Oates to write The College Try. It's a great song. Everyone should go listen to it. I don't think you should risk it, knowing what you know about the likelihood you would end up having a few drinks, maybe, if this is a wet orgy, and messing around with someone, and potentially crushing your boyfriend. So I would urge you, instead of sneaking off to this party with or without his permission and risking your relationship, find another play party. That is the kind of play party you describe having attended earlier, the kind of play party you thought this one was. No sex, just kink, just bondage or paddling or whatever it was the people used to do at those play parties that you used to be comfortable at and that you thought this would be a return to. Go find one of those and take your boyfriend and go.
Hey, Dan, I just listened to episode 521, and you're perpetrating an old myth about who's in charge during a BDSM scene. The top is not in charge, but neither is the bottom. Just like any other sexual encounter, both parties are there to have their needs met, and either party can withdraw consent at any time. Neither is there to service the other, at least not in a one-sided sense. So whether it's one person or two or more, everyone has a right to consent, and everyone has a right to get their needs met. Thanks, man.
Hi, Dan. This is in response to episode 521 about the guy who wasn't too upset about after breaking up or getting broken up with. While I think some of the information you gave him was pertinent, I think he was just looking for some kind of validation that, maybe he's a really independent person, he's in his 20s, and the relationship is not all that defines him. So as a similar type person that, a relationship adds to your life, it might not be everything. And so if he has a lot of self-confidence and a lot of stuff going on, it just might be that it's not enough to rock his ship. So there are other people out there like you.
Hi, Dan. Calling in response to the woman who was really annoyed with her boyfriend who keeps kind of grabbing and pawing at her and then moping whenever she tells him to stop. You mentioned that he should be upset and he should be moping, but the thing is, it's pretty clear from the fact that he keeps grabbing at her and groping her and annoying her that it's not that he's actually full of regret. When he's doing that mopey, I'm a terrible boyfriend kind of act, he's doing that to get her to basically play off her anger and to have to do emotional work, making him feel reassured about having completely crossed her boundaries. So, I respect that you were trying to encourage her to repair the relationship since that's what she wants, but honestly, he sounds like a rapey asshole. I know she said it wasn't a rapey thing and that it was more toddlery, but he's a grown-ass man and he keeps pawing at her and then is unwilling to face any consequences for that by moping and making her reassure him. So I'm going to say that's a DTMFA.
Before we leave it there, I want to say to listeners in California, please vote against Prop 60. Look up what the LA Times and the SF Chronicle urge you to do, which is to vote no for really good reasons on why you should vote no. And check out the website don'tharassca.com for more information on why you should vote no on Prop 60. We're going to leave it there. As you may have noticed, there was a little more politics in the show. At the top of the show, I said there was going to be no more politics. It's just a little more politics. If you like politics and you like how I rant about politics, you might want to check out Blabbermouth, another Stranger podcast, where I'm on most weeks ranting about politics with Eli Sanders, Pulitzer Prize-winning host of Blabbermouth. Also, check out One Bad Mother, and thanks to the Bad Moms for coming on our show today. Check out their podcast wherever you get your podcasts. 206-302-2064 is the number here at the Savage Lovecast. If you want to record a question or a comment for a future show, give us a buzz. 206-302-2064. Seattle and Portland, tickets are going fast for Hump Fest 2016. Go to humpfilmfest.com right now to get your tickets while you still can. Savage Lovecast is produced every week by Nancy Hartunian and me and the tech-savvy at-risk youth. We'll be back next week with another installment of the Savage Lovecast.